Cara, hi, Jim Delapine here. I want to give you some video feedback on this wonderful representation of Flippin' Food Fred, and you did a terrific job on the layer masks. Let me just hit F7 to bring up my layers here, and if I go to my background layer, it looks like you put a gradation in there using a layer style, so let me hide that, and I can now only hit Control 0 to fit my document in the window. And this is wonderfully put together. So I see that there's a number of things that you could do to improve this here, but let's start with the most difficult element here that you had some issues with. I'm still impressed with what you did here with regards to this. So the cutout using the refined edge or select and mask technique. So if I go to my move tool and click on this element here, as long as auto select is active or checked, it will go right to that layer. And then what I'll do is right click on the layer mask and disable it. So this shows me the before this hides the layer mask. Okay, so I can see that there's a lot in here that kind of disappeared using the technique, and you had questions regarding the shadows, and that is a real problem. All right, so because the refined mask or selected mask technique works based on contrast. So ideally, this should have been raised above the surface so you wouldn't have such a harsh shadow. So that makes things more difficult, the fact that you have this harsh shadow because of the contrast issue. So let me enable the layer mask again, and you can see here that there's just a lot lost. So here's what I'm going to do. First of all, if we duplicate this layer, a lot of this, since it's it's transparent, and let me show it to you this way. I'm going to control click on the Sprouts layer mask. That's put a selection around that element, okay? And then, I mean, you haven't worked with this yet. I don't know how experienced you are, but we haven't gotten to the channels part yet, although we touched on it in M3T1. So let me just go to select, save selection, and I could name it, but I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to hit OK, and by default it will be called Alpha 1. So if I now deselect by hitting Control D and then select the layer mask, this is what your selection looks like. So anything that's black in here is masked out. Anything that's grayish in here is partially masked out. Anything that's white is masked out. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that first. So now let me go back to RGB, go back to the layers. Now one way of bringing some of this back in is to simply duplicate the layer. So if I hit Control J, you'll start to see a lot of those elements that come back in. And Control J again, you'll see even more. But there's a lot of this area here that will appear once you put in a background. So let's go to layer 1, layer 0 rather. I still have the layer styles hidden, but if I fill that layer with black, you'll see that a lot of this stuff will show up when you place a background in there. Okay, so an easy way to do that, because the selected mask will only go so far in this situation because of the nature of the difficulty of the image, okay, because of that shadow. So let's go back. Let me undo that and go back here and look at these duplicates here and hide them. So this is what you had now. Okay, so what you can do is this. You can actually work on the channels. Okay, there's two ways you can approach this. You can zoom in, go to the layer mask, and then remembering that black masks out, white shows, you can click on the make sure white is your foreground color, go to your paintbrush, and if you select, you can select like a textured brush down here, okay, and this way, because you don't want a hard edge, so you want this to kind of vary in texture. So if I hit my right bracket key, I'll get a large brush, left bracket key will reduce that. So what I'm going to do is paint on the layer mask, okay, using the paintbrush tool with white on the layer mask, and notice what happens when I click this. I'm revealing what's underneath, okay, so I'm revealing all that area that you did not get. Notice though, if I just click, you're going to get this stippling. So you can reduce the brush to avoid that, and go in there and kind of bring that stuff back in. Okay. But once you get over here, you're now bringing into play here the background, which you want to avoid. All right. So this is where it gets a little tricky. All right, so I'm going back by hitting Control Alt Z Z Z Z Z Z Z Z Z. Okay, so it's kind of a happy medium that you have to get here. Duplicating it certainly did help, but you have to find out where this all works for you. So what you could do is take these three, as I said, duplicate them, and then merge them all together. So if I select this top one and then hit Control E, apply, well, you see, that's the problem here. I want to preserve the layer mask. So if I hit Control E, you want to preserve the layer mask, and then Control E again, preserve the layer mask. Okay, so this is the end result. All right, it looks a lot better, but it's still, you want perfection. That's always the goal. And in this case, it's going to be a kind of a happy medium. So you have to kind of like just figure out where where the solid areas are, and try to avoid bringing in the background. Because if I go to layer 0 and fill that with black, Alt Delete fills with the background color, I'm starting to see the background texture of that napkin. Okay, which is a problem because of the texture, because of the tones, and because you have a hard dark shadow. That's a problem. So what you want to do is just make sure that I would focus on making sure that the areas where you have a solid area of sprouts, you want to make sure that that's totally viewable. Okay, so I'm trying to avoid. You want to avoid the napkin. Okay, so this whole area in the center here, this is tedious, but the end result will be worth the effort. Okay, so I'm just trying, see, some areas here you can't avoid it. So in here, for example, to bring these wispy areas back in will be very difficult. You could get a very small brush and go back in here and just kind of like doodle this in, bring this in here. Okay, you could do that. All right. But once I do this, I'm starting to bring in the texture of that background, so you want to avoid that. Now, another way to do this, let's now make this black. Now you can go in there and mask out these portions here. So it's a back and forth kind of thing. Okay. Doing that. Okay. So you have to figure out what you want and what you want to get rid of. In this case, you may want to go to a standard brush, and then just very quickly get rid of these areas here that you don't want. Okay. There's also another method. It's a little involved, but let's say, for example, you seem to be on top of things, so I'm going to get in depth here. Okay. So let me just select this channel here. First of all, let's go back here and make this a selection by control clicking on this layer mask. So now this is actually a new layer mask. We'll see the difference here. So now I'm going to go to select, save selection, just hit OK, go back here, deselect, and now hit alpha 2. See the difference between this and this? Okay, so this looks a little, it's not really accurate, but what you can do is actually paint on this channel. Okay, so you can go in here and with white, I'm going to hit X to swap it. Okay, X swaps foreground and background color. I can click in here, and if I see areas where I know it's solid sprouts, and you're better off zooming in, then you want to. The only problem is I have a hard edge, so you want to kind of avoid that. So that's why I suggested that textured brush. There's a way to create your own brush also, but so you may want to just kind of go in there and experiment with these brushes and see what works best. reduce your brush size, this and that, okay. So go in there and then edit this in black and white. It might make it easier, okay. Um, so now that I have that, okay, I'm not going to finish this obviously, but let's just say, let me just quickly do this. So I have this, okay. Now I'm going to go back to RGB mode, and I'm going to control click on this channel icon, okay. So that's a selection now. Now I'll go back to layers, all right, and let me just deselect for 1 second. I'm going to make a duplicate of this sprout layer and show you the difference. All right, so Control J will duplicate a layer. I had to make sure I deselected first. Now I will delete the layer mask. So this is the new one. So I'll go back to channels, Control, click on the Alpha 2 thumbnail. So I have a new selection. Go back to layers, and now I'll apply a layer mask based on this selection to the new image. All right, I'm going to hide the old image, and now I'll simply click on the layer mask icon. Okay, and that's the new result based on that painting on the layer mask. So this is old, this is new. Okay, all right. So I've thrown enough out there. Okay, so. But this area here is very important. You want to make sure that once you bring in your background, that this doesn't get all. You don't want these sprouts to be visible and not partially transparent. All right. So let's take this also a step further with regards to other elements here. All right. So you have all these elements wrapping around each other. What you want to do is really make this look like these all work together and are intertwined. So. Something like, for example, let's see where this layer is. This fork and the strawberry. So let's take the fork. I'm going to take the fork. This will change this will reorder things. So let me just show you the concept here. All right. So with the strawberry, right? This here. All right. So you have a strawberry. I'm going to control click on the layer mask for the fork. Okay. Then I'm going to select the strawberry. Now, stay with me here. This is going to sound a little ridiculous, but it's not. So I'm using this selection from the fork and going to the strawberry, remembering that the strawberry layer is on top of the fork. Okay. I'm using this selection to make it appear as if the fork is going to stick into the strawberry. So I'll go to my paintbrush tool. I'll make sure that I have an appropriate brush that is at 100% hardness. Okay, and let me reduce my brush size. Left bracket here reduces it. I'm going to paint with black. Whoops. On the layer mask. Make sure the layer mask thumbnail is active. I'm going to paint with black. Why is this black under here? 1 second here. Let me just think this out. Okay, yes. So I have the strawberry layer mask active. I have the selection based on control clicking on the fork layer. I'm going to paint with black to reveal or mask out part of the strawberry layer to reveal the fork down below. So let's say you do that kind of thing. All right, so now you have the fork sticking into the strawberry. All right, another way to look at it would be, since I have the fork active, I'll now go to the apple layer. Since the apple is on top of the fork, I will mask out part of the apple layer to make it look like the fork is coming out of the apple and into the strawberry. You get the idea? So let's take this. Let's look at this another way. All right. So let's make this. Let me deselect. Let's make this wire appear as if it's going inside the leafery here, the leaves of the lettuce. So that means that with the wire layer active, with a whisk, I'll control click on that and use that selection all right, to make it appear as if it's going into the leaves. So I'll now go to the lettuce layer, and now I will mask out that part of the lettuce, and I'll choose an area. I'm going to say right here, okay? You have two lettuce layers. Aha, okay. All right, so you have a lettuce layer here, so I'll do the same thing here. Why is that happening? Oops, that's because I made a mistake. I did not have the layer mask active. That must be active. So, why is that? Oh, you have three layers here. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm going to have to, I'm getting a little, I don't know how you set this up here, but okay, here we go. So now I'm making it appear as if the wire, which in this case, in this case you have an issue. This doesn't look like a wire anymore, but you know what? You get the idea. I want to make it appear as if it's going into the lettuce. So what else can I show you this? I'm sure you get the idea. Mm-hmm. You know what? This is going on. I'm talking way too long, but basically you want to use layer masks to make it appear as if elements are going into other elements. Okay, I mean, this looks great here. Let's see what you did here. The layer, let me hide all this lettuce. Okay, yep, you have the basic idea here. Yep, you have that going into there. However, let's see how this is. Let me all click on this visibility. That's why. Okay, so you have that on top. Okay, well, you made it work. You made it work. All right, you know what? I'm going to stop there. I think I gave you what you needed. All right, don't need the name yet, but okay, so next week you need an appropriate background, and we'll take it from there. Okay? All right, I hope that helped. Take care. Bye.